Good afternoon. Our final speaker today, he is a physician with specialization in the area of sports medicine. His interest in physical education drove him to acquire a degree in physical education, following which he was continuously involved in the learning and teaching of PE. Please put your hand together to welcome Dr. Swarup Mahagi from the Physical Education and Sports Science Department, NIE. Dr. Swarup.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Benji, for all those kind words. As she said, I'm the final speaker. This almost looks like the final countdown. Before I start, I think it'll only be justifiable if we all thank the CEL team for their relentless efforts to keep us, the faculty, motivated, encouraged all the time, to leave no stones unturned, to help and support us in our endeavors to incorporate technology in teaching and learning. So I think before I start, let's give them a big round of applause, guys. I was sitting there with Henny, and they were talking about things like Facebook, Twitter, who uses what, who doesn't use what. I was not intending to, but I kind of extended my ears, and I told them Facebook is not going to last for long. With the current trends, the youngsters are gradually moving away from Facebook because it's becoming very cliched. And it seems now if you have Facebook, the youngster asks you, oh, you're the Facebook types. That's the situation. Then they were talking about other things, and she used a very beautiful sentence. I use it because it's simple. I think this should be the essence of use of technology in education. We have to present technology to the students in a way that makes it look simple, doable, feasible, something they can connect to. I think, thanks, Henny, for that last-minute enlightenment. It was very beautiful. So, on similar lines, I'll share with you the different experiences, both in the form of teaching and learning, I had with my students with the use of blogs. But before I start, I think I must thank the last two wonderful ladies, Sihui and Carissa. I thought Twitter was only to be used by celebrities, but it's a good feeling that we can also go ahead and use it for more meaningful purposes. Right, moving on to my presentation. We all talk about, we're all teachers, and that's what we do best. And I hope you all will agree with me that when it comes to teaching, it's a fine blend of both art and science. As teachers, we are wonderful craftsmen. We are very crafty in creating beautiful learning environments that is intended to maximize the learning outcomes that we have in mind. And while we do this, we base our crafting of the learning environment based on sound theories, sound philosophies, different concepts that we have acquired in the course of our own professional training. When we do this, we keep in mind the more common teaching dimensions, like what's my curriculum and subject matter, and is my choice of selecting a technology is compatible to this, or should I choose something else? We also look at more student engagement and hence better classroom management. We suit our own limitations and competencies when we select certain methods and learning styles. And very importantly, our students learn at different pace. Some are slow learners, some are moderate speed learners, some are fast-paced learners. I think one of the most important barrier that I have faced in my previous years when I was using things like podcasting and video casting, while I was trying to give them an extended form of learning beyond the classrooms, I was probably not able to deal with this situation of different speed of learning. I was not able to engage students who learn at different paces. So I thought that was a very important aspect that I should be considering subsequently. Well, we've been exposed to lots of conventional forms of teaching and learning in the past, but today's teacher is different. We are the networked digi teachers. We have options to choose from. We can make choices depending on our own capabilities and limitations. We can make choices depending upon the learning attitudes and aptitudes and the characteristic of the student. It's all yours. So what I did to choose from this is find something simple, which is not intimidating, which doesn't look like an added burden over and above classroom learning, which has the individualistic part as well as the collaborative part. As I rightly said previously, I was mentioning previously, I was using podcasting and video casting. Well, there was a lot of individualistic aspect to it, but I was not able to bring my students together as a community, right? I'm sure you'll agree with me that when we deal with a classroom of students, they represent a community, they represent a society. So while we cater to their needs on an individual basis, I think it's also important to explore the possibility of collaborative work, bringing them together as a society, right? So I thought learning from the past using blogs would have been might be a good idea, and therefore reluctantly, with some degree of apprehension, I did start because we teach lots of sports and physical movement kind of activities. So we are more the people of laboratories and sports field rather than the typical teaching, classroom face-to-face teaching. So I started this with one of my exercise physiology student group. This included different components. This had the home, which gave almost the outline of the course that they are up to. It gave them an opportunity to collaborate, critique, contribute. This also had photos and videos which were pre-uploaded. So in a way, as Benji rightly mentioned, it had some elements of the flipped classroom right away. The students read what they would be expecting in the classroom. Before a lab session, they exactly knew what they were up to, what were the learning outcomes, what were the learning objectives. Everything was already known to them. So from here on, what I'll share with you, friends, is my own learning journey, my own realizations as we moved through the semester using this blog as an online supplement to face-to-face teaching and learning. Just a brief about blogs. I'm sure all of you are aware of this, that blogs, or weblogs as actual name is, they are online journals, diaries. They are more products of convenience. I really like that word. They are more products of convenience rather than products of creativity. And probably equally, if not any more important, is they come at almost no cost, actually at no cost. Right, this was probably the most appealing part when I ventured on this endeavor of trying to use blog as a supplementary teaching element in my course. Blogs are wonderful in the sense that they have the individualistic aspect. That means it allows the blog author to develop his or her very own knowledge management system. At the same time, it also has the community thing or the society thing in terms of its collaborative aspects, whereas the class comes together as a group. They comment, they critique, they get feedback from online audience because this is open source social software. So that was really wonderful about blogs. So in this sense, probably I thought blogs was very strongly reflective of the social aspect of online learning, right? Where people who have common interest, in this case, the students of a particular course, they can interact, they can exchange, collaborate, network. They can post their personal thoughts, reflections without any hang-ups. Not much of editing was done, so it was always in its pretty pure form. As I was using the blog in my course, I thought, hey, what are other guys doing? Let me see what other educationals are doing in blog. It was so that in the course, en route in the course, I could further refine my blog content and make it more meaningful learning experiences. What came as a huge element of surprise to me when it comes to teaching physical education and sports science, I could not find a single researcher or a single paper anywhere which has exploited the use of blogs. Some of them did, but it was not published as a credible published literature. It was all more anecdotal evidence, more about personal experiences. So I really couldn't gain too much from my online hunt to see if I can get some value add stuff that I can incorporate in my blog. So in that sense, definitely blogs seems to be underused in terms of their potential in education settings, right? Gradually, what came, and then as I went through the whole expanse of literature, certain common themes started to emerge in sense of the fact that when blogs can be effectively used in education setting, because it has both individualistic aspect as well as the collaborative aspect, they were actually promoting a lot of critical thinking in the students. It was really happening so, and that was quite in sync, in accord with the literature. Blogs can also be used very effectively in education setting for knowledge construction. I'll elaborate later how I went through it and how I understood this aspect myself. Promote online discussions as well as support learning in classroom settings. What was happening in the process of my course was what we were discussing in the classroom, the discussion on that topic continued beyond the classroom into the blogs. And what was happening in the blogs then went into the classroom again. So a wonderful constructive cycle was created when face-to-face classroom learning was extending to blogs, and where the learning and discussion of blogs were generating more amount of discussion and more meaningful interactions of knowledge and its application in the classroom. Blogs can be used for a diverse range of topics. It can also be interdisciplinary in its content. All right, now this was something very interesting. In the first 2 weeks, third week, when we were discussing the cardiovascular system and its functioning, and I was asking certain functional details of the heart when the body exercises, it was all monosyllables, one-word answer. Very typical of what we normally come across. Okay, fair enough. What do you think is the most important cardiovascular component when you do high-intensity exercise? The answers would come like blood flow, heart pump, heavy breathing. Okay, fair enough. They were conceptually right. All right, but as educators, we really want that our students who would be potential teachers in the future, they should be able to structure their thoughts and phrase it in a manner that has a scholarly value, right? So over a period of time, as the blog caught up, what I could see that their reflections on the blog started becoming very organized, very structured. And over the next 3 or 4 weeks, for the same question, okay, what does a marathon runner need to be very high in terms of a functional capacity? Answer comes, the maximum aerobic capacity. I said, okay, good. What do you think that is? Answer comes, it is the maximum capacity of the skeletal muscles to utilize oxygen when the human body exercises at the maximum intensity at the sea level. Okay? So it was a clear reflection that when structured writing becomes a habit, it shows itself in classroom as well as outside classroom. So I thought blogs really did a wonderful job, which in the sense that it just didn't improve the writing skills of the students. They became better communicators. Their expression skills became quite praiseworthy, right? And now, I'm sure they were aware of the fact that whatever they publish or post on the blog is subjected to scrutiny of a public audience, which was first line their own own classmates, and then maybe a wider audience. So overall, it was a clear reflection that this extended form of learning is positively impacting their learning in the classroom. They're trying to learn more than what's being discussed as a face-to-face learning. There you go. The posts that they did, it underwent a natural peer review. So that probably made them more critical, more thoughtful, more insightful about whatever they wanted to post. At the same time, blogs did preserve a lot of freedom of self-expression, and when there were praises on a good comment, there was a sense of accomplishment. So, and the fact that because it was individualistic, I am expressing my thought, so there was a sense of individual autonomy, as well as there were reflections on my thoughts, so there was also a sense of society or a community. Eventually, as more and more students came into posting their thoughts and comments on a regular basis, it was quite obvious that their thoughts were becoming more robust in their content. They were more structured. It had a lot of scholarly value. The way they were exchanging the thought was clearly reflective of the fact that now good amount of knowledge sharing is happening. And eventually it was quite obvious about the week 7, week 8, that a strong sense of online community is emerging as a result of this endeavor. As I mentioned, I think in education, blogs, in terms of its true potential, are grossly underused even till today. And what is important now that I personally and maybe many of you have had the opportunity to explore and exploit the strength of the blog, it is quite important that we as instructors take the responsibility to encourage students to start using this assisted learning environments, be it blogs, be it wikis, be it Twitters, whatever suits the purpose best, and try to maximize their learning both at the individual level as well as at the community level. What we also felt that blogs, I'm sure many of you or maybe all of you are aware of the fact that blogs provide us two wonderful functions, the function of archiving and the function of hyperlinking, right? And both these collectively lead to a phenomena called as knowledge construction. So through the weeks of individual posts, collaborative efforts, debates, constructive argumentation, everything was archived in a chronological manner. So if you really want to see how the knowledge emerged over a period of time, you had a chronological directory of that entire archive. So that was a clear indication of how the students themselves work towards constructing, developing, and evolving this piece of knowledge. Now, beyond that, blogs also offer a good knowledge management option in the sense that whenever you need that particular knowledge, you can always retrieve it from that point of calendar in the blog. So these two were very enriching experience wherein information or knowledge could be archived and they could be retrieved as and when you really want to retrieve that information. In our sense, blogs were also pretty useful because it was a closed group of participants with a common interest who came together. So what blogs did in this case, they filtered the online content already. So in a way, the user were credible and the content was also very credible. That was another important outcome of the blog, that when you use it in education settings, the way the knowledge is constructed and managed gives a lot of credibility to the blog content. What happened beyond classrooms? One of my students, after graduation, went to his primary school and he started a blog. A blog on diet and nutrition, especially about proteins, because he learned in the class that yes, proteins are very important for growing children, and he found that the dietary habits of children are not very well informed. So what he started doing a survey with the children using blogs. So this was a classical example that by using blogs, I could extend learning beyond classrooms and also beyond NIE. Like any other topic, blogs are also quite fertile grounds for research. But as I said, when I looked for one, there was none. So most of them were anecdotal. I found this, I found that, this can be done, that can be done. Credible published literature was almost non-existent. So what comes as a thought for prospective researchers that we need to work further towards the in-depth understanding of how blogs enhance learning, how it changes learners' behaviors and aptitudes towards learning, and certainly more needs to be done. So Lolly in 2004 came up with a nice 5-pointer with a suggestion to what researchers can probably look forward to, or what can be the areas related to blogging where research is desirable and more research needs to be done. And I just came across this couple of days ago. This was added slide 15 minutes ago. Change in British curriculum. They are not learning Victorians and Second World War anymore. The primary school curriculum has chapter 1, Twitter, chapter 2, blogs. Okay, so the government deciding the education policy strongly feels that what is really important in today's world, apart from phonetics, chronology, arithmetic, is to develop media and web-based skills in the children as early as possible in the course of their education. So that's about it in brief of what I learned in my journey using blog, how I myself got enlightened and learned a lot from my own students and from different trial and error approaches that we implemented in the blog. So for me, it was a wonderful experience, and as I said, blogs are grossly underused. They have huge potentials apart from just expressions and certain posts. You can do a lot with blogs. They are simple in its construct. The interface is simple. There is nothing really intimidating about it. And what's more important, the students' acceptance was very, very high when we used blog as a medium of knowledge sharing, extending our learning beyond classrooms. Thank you so much for your patience and attention.
Thank you, Dr. Saurabh.